Welcome back again, everyone, to Bankruptcy with Ben. It's been a little bit of time since our last video, but we are back, and we're back to discuss the saga of Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, former NFL wide receiver, perhaps best known for in the middle of a game while he was playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, ran out on the field in the middle of the third quarter, shirtless, and ended up leaving the game in the middle of the game, and afterwards was essentially released from the team. His sagas did not end there, as he has now found himself in bankruptcy. And I wanted to go over this bankruptcy in particular, A, because I think many people will naturally be interested in Antonio Brown, a very polarizing figure, and B, to show you point by point how, if you're a creditor and somebody that owes you money files for bankruptcy, all is not lost. There's several avenues that you can explore to see how you could potentially extract money back from the debtor, meaning the individual or the company that's in bankruptcy. So let's have a quick look at this article, which is going to detail many of the things that have been going wrong in Antonio Brown's bankruptcy. So here we go. Brown faces allegations of hiding assets in bankruptcy case. Right off the bat, not a good start. If you're in bankruptcy, you need to be very, very open about your assets. Think of it almost as an audit from the IRS. The IRS audits you, you have to start disclosing a whole bunch of information. Bankruptcy is like that. You're being audited by the bankruptcy court because you want to get rid of some debts. So in exchange, they're going to poke around through every penny and make sure that every last penny has been accounted for. So you're hiding assets, not a good start. Let's see what's going on. Former NFL star Antonio Brown is facing the potential dismissal of his bankruptcy case after being accused of failing to disclose key assets and financial information. Brown initially filed for bankruptcy in May, listing liabilities exceeding $3 million, despite earning over $80 million throughout his football career. One thing that sticks out, and unfortunately this is way too common among celebrities, they make enormous amounts of money at a very young age. Many of them, unfortunately, come from very impoverished backgrounds, and now they're suddenly given tremendous wealth, and they don't know what to do with all this wealth. And they spend lavish lifestyles, which even with their newfound wealth is too much. So now Antonio Brown finds himself in bankruptcy, and right off the bat, again, he's accused of failing to disclose assets and financial information. Financial information, again, bankruptcy court, every penny has to be accounted for. So, what does that mean? Let's go on. Jeweler Zul Nantambu also sued Antonio Brown as part of his bankruptcy proceedings. This is another way that people find themselves in bankruptcy. Not only could they be spending more than they can afford, sometimes business deals go awry, other things don't work out the way you want them to, and you get sued. And now you want to stop the lawsuit or get some kind of breathing room. Filing for bankruptcy gives the benefit of that protective shield. It's called automatic stay. Think of it like a force field. Anybody that's trying to collect money from you has to stop. They're blocked by the force field. In recent developments, the court-appointed trustee overseeing Brown's Chapter 11 case objected to his proposed repayment plan, citing multiple concerns. So, this is another way where you're a creditor and you got to think strategically. How do I want to get paid? One way, just get rid of the whole bankruptcy. Just throw it out and throw them to the wolves, so to speak. And I'll be the more aggressive wolf. I'll come in, I'll get my assets, no problem. Another way, maybe they're not disclosing all their assets as well as they need to. And that's what the trustee is saying. Let's go on. Antonio has failed to disclose his pre-petition transfer of property and his interest in various entities. What does that mean? Well, if you're filing for bankruptcy, and this is something I hear all the time, people call me, they want to file for bankruptcy. They own a house. The house has a lot of equity in it. Under New York state law, you can protect a substantial amount of equity in your house. Roughly $200,000 creditors cannot touch. So if the mortgage on the house is $1 million, the house is worth $2 million, you have $1 million in equity. You can protect $200,000 of that. And now $800,000 of your equity is unprotected. That means either a bankruptcy trustee could come in and sell your property, and from the sale proceeds, $1 million goes to pay off the mortgage, $200,000 goes to you because that's your exemption, what you can keep, $800,000 goes to creditors. Alternatively, you say, okay, I'll pay everybody back $800,000. So obviously that's a very big concern because many people, they don't have the liquidity to repay $800,000, and they also don't want to be forced to give up their home. So they say, well, what if I just transfer the property to my wife or to my next door neighbor? Unfortunately, it's called fraud. If you take an asset out of your name, you give it to a third party, and you do not receive any money in exchange, and you're doing it specifically because you do not want a creditor to be able to touch it in a bankruptcy, a trustee could get appointed by the court, and the trustee could then sue the third party who received the property and say that was a fraudulent transfer and undo it, make it as if it never happened. And now the property is back into the name of the bankruptcy filer, and now it can be redistributed to creditors. So that is what the trustee is saying. The trustee is saying Antonio did not disclose this transfer because he knew if he did disclose it, a trustee could come in and undo it, and that would be a problem. So he's hiding his transfers. So again, if you're a creditor and you think that maybe somebody is not being so honest about their financial affairs, these are the things you want to look for. And even if somebody you think you don't know whether or not they are being honest or not honest, you just don't know. That's why it's very important to have experienced bankruptcy counsel. Have someone come in and look at this, see where is all the money going. Every penny must be accounted for in bankruptcy. The trustee is not happy with even more things though. Let's go on. What else has Antonio not done? He has not timely or adequately complied with the debtor reporting requirements. What does that mean? The debtor, again, is the person or business that is in bankruptcy. And there's strict financial reporting requirements. Again, bankruptcy is an open book process. Everyone is entitled to see where all your money went and where it's going to. And you have to report every month showing where all your money is going. And if you're not making these reports on time, or if the reports are not fully detailing all the information, That's problematic. So again, if step into the shoes of a creditor, if you're seeing these kind of things, you could say, okay, here's something I can use as leverage to get the bankruptcy thrown out. Sometimes it's just a ministerial error, or it's technical errors, or things are just done sloppy. It's not intentional. Sometimes they're not intentionally trying to deceive you. But regardless of intent, the rules are there for a reason and they need to be strictly complied with. And if somebody's not going to comply with them, then you as a creditor could say, well, they're not complying with these rules. Let's get the bankruptcy thrown out. So just remember these as tools, things to think about when you see a bankruptcy, as points you can do to create leverage and put pressure on them to either come up with the money to repay you or be faced with the threat of getting the whole bankruptcy thrown out. Now, Antonio Brown was particularly egregious. What is the trustee accusing Brown of not disclosing? He did not disclose 3 properties that he transferred. Real estate worth a lot of money. He transferred it out of his name. Where did it go? Who has it? Is this real estate that can be liquidated to repay creditors? Big problem. Additionally, the trustee claims Brown appears to be the owner of multiple social media handles, which are estate assets that the debtor failed to disclose on his schedules. What does that mean? Let's just go on a little bit and then I'm going to explain it. One of these handles, Brown's X account, which again, formerly known as Twitter, I still call it Twitter, allegedly includes a link to a website selling merchandise featuring his likeness, which also raises questions about his revenue. Now, what does all that mean? Estate asset, again, when you file for bankruptcy, everything goes into one big, think of it as a boat or a pot, right? Everything you own is now in this big pot. This big pot is owned by what? This thing called your bankruptcy estate. What is a bankruptcy estate? The bankruptcy estate is everything that you own. What is the purpose of it? The purpose is to preserve your assets so that they can be repaid to your creditors. So it's very important to disclose everything that you own, no matter how intangible it might seem. Because is it something that has a monetary value that can be liquidated and the money can be used to repay your creditors? This trustee is saying Antonio Brown has social media platforms. And since Antonio Brown is a celebrity with a large following and large influence, this social media platform potentially has an actual monetary dollar value to it. And he did not report it on his bankruptcy papers. No good, Antonio. Additionally, Antonio Brown, again a celebrity, he has a link to a website selling merchandise that he's on. In other words, he appears to be endorsing this merchandise. If he's endorsing it, he's obviously getting money from it. He's getting money from it. That needs to be reported. Where is all this going? That's the gist of it. We're not going to get into the entire article. I just wanted to point out those few nuggets, really. Again, all this illustrates how when you're a creditor, don't despair. There's potentially many, many options available. You need to look very, very closely at what's going on in the bankruptcy. Are there physical, tangible assets like a piece of property, jewelry, something that was not properly disclosed? Something like a social media handle that was not disclosed, which could potentially be sold for dollars. Second, did the bankrupt person or company transfer properties or any other assets out of their name before bankruptcy? And can therefore a third party now be sued to say, hey, that transfer should never have happened, and we're going to make it as if that whole thing is null and void and just undo that whole transfer. And now it goes back as if it never happened. And now it's back to Antonio Brown or whoever the bankrupt person is and can then be sold. Those are the important points. If you're a creditor, very important. Don't despair. Look carefully at what's going on. Speak with experienced bankruptcy counsel, especially if it's a public person like Antonio Brown that's filing, and you know that they made a lot of money at one point. Don't think that the money's all lost. Very often the money can still be recovered. It just takes a little extra patience, a little extra digging, knowledgeable bankruptcy counsel, and you might be able to recover, if not all of your losses, at least a substantial portion. That's it for now. Hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see everybody on our next one.